Joining me now is Dion Hinchcliffe. He's the Vice President and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research. That's a technology research and advisory firm. Dion, if you look at the numbers, Huawei pretty much tanked outside of Asia, double-digit drop in Europe and in the Americas. I suppose those numbers jumped out at you, but what were your key takeaways?
Well, the key takeaways I had were, I think there was a lot of expectations that Huawei was going to do much worse than this. The short version is that Huawei had a surprisingly good year. Their carrier business is doing very well. All their businesses actually grew. But the silver lining, where they're most diversified, is in their Huawei enterprise category, where they sell services to IT departments that go well outside their strength in 5G. And so we saw lots of good growth there. Their Harmony OS, which is their mobile operating system to replace Android, which they're having struggles getting the latest versions of Android on their mobile devices. That's doing surprisingly well, and it's become arguably the third most popular mobile operating system out there. So that sets them up for what could be a much better year this year, and they did quite well.
So you see some silver linings there.
Well, there's no question they have some challenges. As you mentioned, they grew well in China, but there's real concern that they have declines elsewhere. But as we see that 5G is the top priority for mobile telecoms around the world, their carrier business, at least in the first half of 2020, our data shows that they were taking on Nokia and Ericsson, the two other leading contributors to the 5G industry, and their share was declining while Huawei's was growing all throughout the first half of 2020. I'd love to see the rest of that data. But Huawei's carrier business is positioned to grow strongly, and there are signs that the UK is going to soften their stance. There's even signs, although the Biden administration did add a few new sanctions to the list, there's now real talk that they might soften their stance towards Huawei over the next couple of years. And so, yeah, I think there's room for hope. They're down, but they're far from out.
You say soften the stance, but there was this double whammy. Of course, the pandemic, that leveled a lot of companies. But this full court press by the Trump administration, at some point everybody's going to be vaccinated, they're going to get back to normal. But what about that other challenge? It still persists. Some of these markets that they were hoping to penetrate in the Western nations, tending to shy away from Huawei. How does the company deal with that?
Well, I think they've done several things. One, they've been very good at opening the books, as it were, saying that they would like to open all of their technology for scrutiny and say, there's no back doors, our technology is safe. They've created a center in Europe, I think in Brussels, that allows that kind of activity to take place, saying, please, we'll show you everything that we have. So I think that open book approach will continue to serve them well, and they're continuing to follow that line, I think, in 2021. The other big advantage they have is their R&D spend. It's 15 to 16% of revenue for the company, which is very high. That allows them to both diversify into new markets, to continue growth in other areas, but it allows them to be a leader in 5G, to maintain that leadership in 5G and then eventually 6G. And developed nations have to ask themselves, do they want to have the second best 5G networks? That's going to be critical for competition and for growth, for recovery after COVID. Or do they want the best, which Huawei arguably is? And I think those twin arguments are going to increasingly feel weight, I think, throughout the year, and as we have a more even administration.
Twin arguments, let's talk about a twin approach. If you were to advise them, would you say it continue to push beyond the borders or also focus on the domestic market, try and grow that as well?
Well, I mean, to be clear, the two biggest growth markets in this century are going to be in Asia and Africa. And those are not areas where Huawei is currently having many challenges. And they think long term. When I've talked to Huawei executives in the past, they talk about 20-year plans. And so I think that they're definitely feeling headwinds coming out of 2020. It was challenging not just on the geopolitical side of things, but across the board on their business, and they still did well. And I think they're laying the foundation for a really strong century, and that's how they look at it.
Dion, great talking to you. Thanks so much for your analysis.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.